Hey, it's Ruth here. If you've been following my video lessons in order, you probably just heard about how to describe a place or a restaurant in part 2. Now let's focus more on your verb tenses for the past, because many students find it difficult to describe past events, but it's common in part 2 in IELTS speaking. Remember, the examiner will give you a card with some instructions and you have 1 minute of silence to prepare your response. Then you have to speak by yourself for 1 to 2 minutes. Here is an example. Remember, this lesson is only focusing on talking about the past. Talk for 1 to 2 minutes about a time when you felt disappointed. You should say when it happened, who was involved, what happened, and why this event made you feel disappointed. Can you see all the past simple when you felt? It happened. Who was involved? It made you feel disappointed. So you must do the same. Use past simple, sometimes past continuous, and probably at least once past perfect. So, how do you approach the card? What do you do in the minute that is given to you? Firstly, introduce the event or the incident. For example, okay, today I'm going to talk about, or, all right, if I were to choose a time when I felt disappointed, I would talk about, or just simply, I'd like to tell you about. So you must introduce it first. Then you must talk about when. Follow the card. Then talk about who and be specific. What's next? Describe what happened in sequence. It's very important you get all the verbs in the past and you use the correct time expressions. I'm sure you've learnt them before, after, ago, when it happened, all of those time expressions. And look at the last one, why this event made you feel disappointed. So you have to give reasons why you felt disappointed. Let's try. Okay, I'm going to tell you about a time when I failed an exam. To be exact, it was a high school biology exam. I can remember exactly when it happened. It was in November 2007. I remember that because it was my final year in secondary school. As for the people involved, well, I guess mainly me. I was the one responsible for the failure, and in the end, my disappointment. Of course, my science teacher and my parents were involved indirectly because before the exam they had taught me or motivated me, and then I had to tell my parents that I'd failed. I thought that was the worst day of my life at the time. Anyway, I was shocked when I got the result. Thankfully, it was the last class of the day, so I left school really quickly, disgusted with myself. And I walked all the way home along the railway tracks crying. You must understand that I was a pretty good student and I had never failed anything before. Maybe that's the reason I was so disappointed. Not because I hadn't studied or that I didn't want to do well, just the fact that I wasn't good enough to reach the pass mark. Thank goodness I didn't become a biologist. Let's just go back and look at the card. Talk for 1 to 2 minutes about a time when you felt disappointed. You've got to talk about when. Did the student mention when? Who? Describe what happened and give reasons for why she felt so disappointed. So now let's go through some skills. You firstly have to introduce the event. What did I say? Okay, I'm going to tell you about. To be exact, so these are some skills to introduce the topic or the event. Then you have to talk about when. Give the correct time expressions. What did I say? I can remember exactly when it happened. It was in November 2007, and here it was my final year in secondary school. So the student shows the examiner many ways to express time in the past. Oh, there's that sun again. It's too bright. Who was involved? Look how the student introduces this. As for the people involved, mainly me. Of course, other people were involved indirectly. You have to describe what happened. Look at all the past tense perfection. I was shocked. I left school. I walked all the way home. Keep the past tense consistent. Then finally, you had to give reasons for why you were disappointed. So, look at this. Maybe that's the reason. Not because or just the fact that. Maybe that's the reason, and the word because. So this is a perfect example of how to match the card. And remember, you always need to link between your points on the card. And here is a table of all the ones that student's answer used. Very impressive. What about your past tense accuracy? You need past simple, you need past perfect and past simple together, and you need past continuous and past simple together. Now this sentence was not in that example, but I put it here to show you, and you can study them at your own time. Let's practice another one. Describe a school you went to. You should say when you went there, how many people studied there, how long you spent there, and explain what you liked and disliked about the school. Now be careful. This is a good example where you can practice phrasal verbs and other natural expressions, and also use would and used to talk about past routines or things that happened regularly. Let me show you. Okay, I'm going to tell you about my elementary school. It was called Wewak Elementary School, and it was not far from my apartment where we were living in Wewak. So I could walk there with my mother, or sometimes my grandmother used to walk me to school. I went there for 2 years when I was 5 to 7 years old. It wasn't a very big school, maybe around 300 kids. It's hard to know that sort of thing when you're only young. This school has good and bad memories for me. I remember that I found it hard to make friends. I'd be standing alone. Look at that, I would be. I'd be standing alone in the courtyard and feeling left out of the games that the other children were playing. On the other hand, I did meet one friend who is still a good friend today. His name is Abraham. And together we'd sit in the library sometimes to avoid all the noise outside. Also, my main teacher was unforgettable. He used to get down on his hands and knees to teach us. He taught us how to be kind, not just to do math and other things that you have to learn at school. What an excellent model! the past tense, the moving from point to point, the use of used to and would, and all the mix of the different tenses. It's excellent. What were some of those skills? Can you use used to or I'd or we'd? And here are the examples from the text. Can you show two sides? Remember the card said what were the good things and the bad things. You can use in contrast or on one hand, on the other hand. Don't give up, keep practicing. We've run out of time in this lesson, but I will show the next screen with the model, and you can see the model in the PDF. This one is about a minor accident. So notice all those good skills that I showed you, like a range of verb tenses using would and used to. And this one, I just want to remind you from the previous lesson, because you're telling a story, so you still want to be a little bit descriptive and use some adverbs to make your story more interesting. So here is the model answer. As I said, we've run out of time, so you can pause the video and have a look. Practice reading it, practice your pronunciation as well. So, I'm here to help you. I also have Writing Task 1 and Writing Task 2 products. Contact me if you need some more help.